Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a very exciting figure to take a look at. It's one that many people have been waiting a very long time for. These are the brand new Rebor grab-and-go Tyrannosaurus figures. This is the first time we've had a dinosaur introduced to the grab-and-go line, as we previously have only had a Komodo dragon, I think. I can't really recall anything else releasing from the grab-and-go line from Rebor so far, so I'm really psyched to finally have a dinosaur in the line, but also just generally to have another figure in the line, because the initial Komodo dragon was really nice, I thought. I absolutely loved it. So I was really intrigued to see how the next figure would look as far as like paint and sculpt and everything goes. And I can tell you with complete confidence, these figures are extremely impressive, much more impressive than I was actually expecting, especially when it comes to the paintwork. I figured the sculpt would be really nice, but I wasn't so sure on the paintwork, as I had seen some images of other people's online, and this is kind of an example of why you can never trust images online of other people's figures, because just depending on the light, the paint jobs on the figures may not look all that great, but having them here in hand, I can definitely say with complete confidence both have fantastic paintwork and much, much better than I was expecting. But again, we have two different versions here. There are actually 4 versions all together, but the other 2 have not released quite yet, although I cannot wait for the Dinosaur Revolution one to release. But we have a kind of yellowish brown type version with a reddish head here, and then we have a really nice brownish version to the right, and both here in person look fantastic. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at both of these right now. So starting with the red head version, I guess we'll call it, you can see a really nice amount of sculpt and detail to the face of the dinosaur. There is beautiful, beautiful scale detail all over the head sculpt of this Rex, and a lot of the areas have been filled in with a really nice dark wash. You can really see that nicely here on the lower jaw. But the figure as a whole just generally has a really nice dark wash to it. You can see that in pretty much every aspect of the figure. But again, the detailing and the scale detail up here on the face is just fantastic. And you can see that here as we get a nice closer look. You can really see how incredible each and every one of those scales looks. And there are so many different varying sizes of scales included on the face of this Rex. You can see the nostrils sculpted out quite beautifully right there. The eye is painted really nicely as well, nice and carefully, and is painted with a goldish coloration and a black pupil, kind of the way Rebor always seems to paint the eyes of their Tyrannosaurs. You also have a really nice darker coloration there that kind of borders around the eye, which I do like because it helps to elaborate the eye overall. And you can see that same look to the figure over here, but you can actually see like some different variations of color here in the face. It's a really nice like maroonish red coloration, like a really dark red, but there's also some areas that include like even darker tones, like almost like some blacks and stuff in the face area of our Rex, and I really like that. Again, that's something that I love when companies do, because it just gives the figures an overall very realistic appearance, and something that you would probably see on a real living dinosaur. So anytime I can get a dose of realism with my figures, I am super happy about it. Beautiful sculpt and detail up here on the top of the head of the Rex as well. You can see how gorgeous that detail looks from pretty much every angle. And then the inside of the mouth sports an incredibly nice sculpt as a whole. You can see even that kind of like area here in the side of the mouth is really nicely sculpted, beautifully detailed. Same deal over here, and you can also probably tell at this point that there is a really nice gloss coat included in there. That tongue is really nicely textured as well, beautifully painted. It appears to have a wash included as well, so that all the detail of the tongue pops and really shines through quite nicely. You can get a better idea of what the inside of the mouth looks like right here. Really, really nice detail and sculpt throughout the entire inside of the mouth. That looks incredible. When you actually look into the back of the throat, it almost appears as though it doesn't end back there, so that as well is a very cool aspect of the figure. And you can see the teeth are painted perfectly with a nice white coloration. They as well have a gloss coat to them, and there's no sloppiness as far as the paintwork on the teeth go. I'm sorry if that was unreasonably close, but this Rex has a pretty long tail, so he's kind of dragging his tail along the bottom of the stand right here. But you can see that the mouth as a whole looks incredible. Of course, you don't have that same style of like almost translucency to the teeth like you get on a lot of the higher quality Rebor figures, but honestly, these are beautifully done, regardless. As we start to move back into the neck here of the Tyrannosaur, you can see the ear right here. You can also see lots of really nice skin folding, skin wrinkling going on in the neck, and you can see in general that it transitions from that really dark maroonish type red to a lighter red here in the neck region, and I think that looks really good as well, giving the figure some nice color variation, and the transition between that red and this kind of yellowish coloration here, almost like a gold of the body, is really smooth, really nicely done, and I love that aspect of the figure. But up here on the top, it stays a nice darker coloration. It's a nice dark gray, and you can see it start to pick up right here on the head, and then the entire upper side of the dinosaur stays that dark gray the entire course of the body. Again, the detail here in the neck region of the Tyrannosaur looks beautiful. You can also pick up on some osteoderms here and there. Really nice kind of hanging skin here in the throat a little bit right there. You can see lots of skin wrinkles going on overall in the neck region of the Tyrannosaur. And then once we move down here into the body, you can pick up on the shoulder blade just ever so slightly, but it's nothing that's, overly exaggerated or anything. You can see the really nice small Rex arm here. Again, a little bit of that reddish coloration has come down here into the arm just ever so slightly, but then it transitions to a lighter coloration similar to this goldish color that we have. You can see the muscle tone nicely displayed in the arm. And then at the hand, it kind of transitions to a darker gray, similar to what we see up on the back. Very nice scoots down the fingers. The actual fingernails, I'm not sure if they are painted any different than the hands. It's a little tough to tell. They actually look like they might be a darker shade of gray, so I guess they are painted. Coming back up into the body, you can see the rib cage just a little bit there in the stomach region, as well as some more fantastic skin texture. Really nice osteoderms poking up here and there. You can see the skin stretching off of the body because the Rex has its leg in a very far pulled back position right there. Again, the actual skin wrinkles and skin folds and everything are really nicely shown throughout the stomach region. Right there, you can see again a really smooth transition as we go from that goldish coloration up into that dark gray. And then you come back here, you do have the hip bone, pretty nicely elaborated. Very nice muscle tone in both the thigh and calf region. It definitely looks like a very strong animal, which is exactly what it would be. The kneecap is present right there. Coming down into the foot, that foot sculpt is gorgeous, really beautifully done. It just generally looks like a very large foot right there. I love the way that looks. And again, there's a really nice wash included to it. Lots of really beautiful paintwork on this figure. Much, much better than I was expecting. Nice scoots down the toes and down the foot as well. And again, that wash allows for that detail to really pop quite nicely. Same deal here on the underside as well. You can see even in the white areas of the figure, there's a nice wash included. And then coming up here into the tail, you can see some more nice skin wrinkling going on right there. Some more beautiful creases in the skin as we move out the length of the tail. Some of the osteoderms picking up here and there, up here on the top. And that tail is extremely, extremely long. It really runs quite far out, and you can see the very nice transition as it heads to the tip of the tail. Beautiful paintwork in that aspect as well. The underside is also really nicely detailed. Really beautiful sculpting of the scales here on the underside of the Rex, as well as lots of really nice kind of skin wrinkles you can see provided here on the underside of the Rex. Some nice chest muscles as well, and generally looks really, really good as far as the sculpt goes, but you can also see that nice dark wash that's included to bring the detail out quite beautifully. Even the underside of the feet, if I can get my camera to focus on it, are really nicely sculpted, and again also have been given that dark wash to bring the detail out quite beautifully. And you can see the dew claw is present right there. And now looking over at the opposing side, again lots of skin wrinkles as we head down into the neck region of the Tyrannosaur. It looks really, really good as far as that detail goes. Again, the actual throat is quite nicely shown right there. The head sculpt as well looks beautiful, really, really nicely done up here. And again, I really like the way that they painted that lower jaw, and all of the scales really pop right there on the lower jaw. And just like we had seen on the previous side, you have that reddish coloration that kind of runs down into the arm just a little bit there, but then we transition back to that kind of goldish color that the body primarily is. It's like a goldish yellow type of a color. And then transitioning back to the dark gray here in the hands, which looks pretty good. Again, there's a little bit of an abrupt transition as far as the paintwork goes in the hand area. Same deal on the opposing side, but it doesn't look bad at all. And you can see the muscle tone pretty nicely displayed in this arm as well. And then we have some really nice skin wrinkling, skin creasing, and everything going on over here in the stomach region. Again, the Rex is pushing its leg into the body here, into the stomach a little bit, so of course it would be bunching that skin up pretty nicely right there. You can also pick up on the rib cage a little bit here in this region as I turn it. Once again, just like we had seen on the previous side, You, of course, have the osteoderms poking up here and there. Again, a nice smooth transition between that goldish body color and the gray up here on the top. You can see the hip bone right here as well, and then some more beautiful muscle tone in the thigh and calf region. Again, looking really good overall. You can see the seams in quite a few areas on the figure, but I really don't think that takes away from the figure at all, honestly. And then coming down here into the foot, this foot sculpt once again looks beautiful. Really, really nicely done. I love the actual sculpting of the feet on this Rex. It looks so kind of bird-like, but very large, and just generally looks quite awesome. And I love the paintwork on them as well. You can see how it transitions to a nice darker coloration down here for the feet. Then there's a really nice wash included as well, bringing all that detail out quite beautifully. You can continue to see how that wash has made all the scale detail, all the skin texture pop quite nicely on the figure. And again, you can see some more creasing going on right here, kind of like some cracks and crevices within the skin, as well as just generally the skin kind of pulling off of the body as this leg is pulling forward, stretching that skin quite nicely. And then we run out the length of the tail. And again, that tail is super, super long and looks beautiful overall. Really nice sculpt, really nice paint. This is an absolutely awesome Tyrannosaur model. The only thing that I can definitely say I've actually heard a lot of people mention, and I can agree, is that the Rex is pretty thin, but honestly it doesn't look that thin on this one. I mean, this area specifically, it definitely looks like it's got a little bit of a issue going on as far as finding food, and it's not all that healthy, but I don't think it looks terrible. I have seen some images online that kind of make it look like it's a lot worse than it seems to be, but if we look at this one everyone seems to be saying is actually thinner than that one, but I don't really notice much of a difference, if I'm being honest. You could see, yeah, maybe it's a little bit thinner than the kind of yellow and red version, but it's not too much. But I think it is definitely a little bit thinner than the opposing version. But let's go ahead and take a look at what's different on this one in comparison to the previous one, because we now have reviewed the sculpt. We only really need to look at the paintwork. And I actually think I like this one better than that one, just because I really feel like the tones of color used on this are extremely natural and beautiful overall, really nicely done. And if we start up here at the head, you can see that primarily the body is a really dark coloration, and it's like a really dark brown, but there's also a lighter brown that you could see kind of creeping through in certain areas so that it highlights the scale detail. It looks like they've given it like a nice light brown wash in most areas, and it really makes that detail pop. You can actually pick up on it quite nicely here on the lower jaw of the Tyrannosaur, and the way they painted the lower jaw makes, again, all of that scale detail pop in a very nice, very realistic way. The paintwork on these figures is actually extremely impressive, much better than I expected it to be, and I know that's like the third time I've said that, but it's just continuing to impress me more and more as I look at these figures. The paintwork here on the inside of the mouth is actually a different shade of color than what we had seen on the previous figure. It's actually a little bit of a lighter shade, which I really think looks really nice in comparison to the darker body color. And I think that in general, it's an extremely realistic coloration overall. Really nice detailing there on the tongue. You can see it a little better, I think, with this coloration than we could with the previous one. It just pops a little better, but you can see how beautiful that texturing is and just how nice the actual paintwork is inside the mouth. Again, including kind of like a darker wash in there so that all that detail pops and looks quite realistic. And the teeth are once again painted to perfection. There is just zero sloppiness as far as the painting of the teeth on these figures, or at least on mine. So that is an extremely, extremely nice thing to see, because there's nothing worse than having a really beautiful Rex figure with sloppily painted teeth, but you don't see that at all on these grab-and-go Rex figures. And then as we lead up here, we take a look at the eye. You can see that eye is painted quite beautifully, again, given the gold treatment with the black pupil, and they look great, honestly. Really nicely done as far as the painting of the eye. Same deal over here, really nicely placed, and sometimes Rebor has a little bit of an issue with their eye placement. Not often, but I have seen it, but these ones are painted really beautifully, so hopefully that's something that has been corrected. You can see the lower jaw on this one sports a beautiful paint application. I really love the way they painted that lower jaw, and the way that kind of lighter brown creeps through, and then there's just darker areas that seem to be dry brushed, and everything just looks fantastic. But even up here on the top, it looks great in every area. And then moving back here into the neck, you could start to see again some nice variations of browns. You have lighter and darker browns included, and they're just kind of mixed together, which I really do quite like because it gives it a very realistic appearance overall, and there's a nice smooth transition to a lighter coloration here on the underside of the neck. And again, all that detail is brought out really nicely with that dark wash. You can see that same deal here in the underside of the neck with that nice dark wash, and actually the underside here of the Rex. As you move down into the body, you can actually see a little more color variation there in the arm with kind of like those lighter browns creeping through. And when we move up into the stomach region, you can also see lots of really nice variation of color. Like you can really see like there's like this nice light kind of an off-white, but there's also like some light browns and stuff showing up, and just some different variations. Like even back here, you can actually see a little bit of a brighter white that's included. So there is quite a bit of really nice realistic color variation with the figure. Even here in the hands, actually, you can see a transition back to a nice darker coloration, but the nice dark wash that you can see beautifully down here has brought out all the detail really nicely, and even allows for what appears to be a little bit more color variation. Once again, really smooth transition from the light kind of off-white color to this darker brown up here. And even as we kind of turn it right here, you can see like lighter browns kind of creeping through. So the paintwork of this figure is honestly beautiful. Actually, I think it's better than most of what Rebor usually produces. It's really, really nicely done, especially as far as like a realism factor goes. There's just so many different tones of color included, which is something that I personally am a huge fan of when it comes to dinosaur figures, because again, it's something you really do see on real living animals, and I think that Rebor has actually captured that quite perfectly on both of these figures. Again, you can see it darken really nicely as you get higher up in the body, but on top of darkening, you can see there's actually different variations of darker and lighter browns included even in the darkest of areas of the body, which is really, really cool. Again, lots of color variation as you move down here into the thigh area. You can see like whites and like kind of like lighter and darker variations of off-whites included, just like you can see lighter and darker variations of browns over here included, and it continues to look that way as you run down here into the calf area and then down into the foot. The foot is really beautifully painted. Again, it transitions to a nice dark coloration, similar to what we saw in that reddish version of the Rex, but you can also see how the dark wash has brought the detail out quite beautifully, and a nice little dry brushing has allowed for some really nice scale detail to shine through, as well as the very nice scoots running down the toes. And then when we come back up here into the tail, you can again pick up on that nice dark wash, but you can also see that the darker brown kind of stripes down. It's not really so much of a striping, but it kind of leads down in certain spots, which looks really, really cool, and again, something that I feel like makes the figure look like a real living animal, and it's very smooth the way it's applied, really nice and naturally applied. And we'll take a look at the opposing side here. And the same deal again. First of all, the lower jaw is fantastic as far as the way it's painted, but really, honestly, the whole figure is, but I just really love the way the lower jaw is painted. But once you get into the neck, again, you can see the kind of lighter and darker browns creeping through. Like right here, you can see a really light brown, then it gets a little bit darker, then you have a little bit darker, and then you have up here like mixtures of like in the cracks and crevices, you can see like a lighter brown creeping through, mixing beautifully and very realistically with the darker brown. And then you have that lighter coloration in the throat, of course, a little color difference here in the arm as far as the lighter coloration, and then transitioning back to that darker brown. And then again in the stomach region, some lighter and darker tones of like that off-white. And everything is so beautifully applied on the figure. I'm super happy with the paint job on this figure. You can actually really see the thin appearance to the Rex here from the underside on this one. But again, really nice natural application of the paint. You can see some beautiful variation of that brown here and that darker brown. And I love how it's not like perfectly placed, like it's kind of sporadic the way it just kind of leaks into the body. And that looks really cool. And again, something that I feel like is potentially very realistic. Beautiful paint application here on the foot. Once again, the scales are all brought out brilliantly with that nice dark wash and the dry brushing that's been applied. And then coming back up here into the tail, same appearance to the opposing side of the tail that we had seen where they kind of like striped down, but just like the like I was just saying right here, how it's kind of sporadic. Same deal over here. You can see it's a lot more like of almost like a striping on this side, but over here there's like more going on. I just really love the way they painted this. It's super realistic if you ask me, and overall this is definitely my favorite version of the Grab and Go Rex so far. I'm really quite psyched with this one, even though it does have a little bit of a thin issue here in the stomach region. I still think it's an absolutely gorgeous Tyrannosaurus model. Now these figures actually come with a little stand. You can see a nice clear stand. It's actually really beautiful looking as far as that. Like it's super, super translucent. You can see straight through that, and it's just very nicely done. But you don't actually need the stand. Both Rexes do come with one, but you can actually see here that the Rex is standing on its own because the tail here touches when you set it down. And you can see how that tail helps for the overall balance of the Rex. So it can stand on its own with just a little touch of the tail, or you can of course apply the stand to the underside to help it stand a little better with maybe the tail up off the ground. You can kind of lean it, I think, into a position and have it stand with the tail not touching, if that's what you prefer. But honestly, I think it's pretty nice with the stance here, with the tail even tapping the ground just a little bit there. I still think it looks quite awesome. But as far as a size goes, we'll bring, I guess, the brown version in here and get the stuff out of the way. Actually, we'll just measure to the head because it's probably easier for you guys to see it then. For a length from the tail to the head, you are looking at about 17 inches or about 43 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of the head, you are looking at about just under 6.5 inches or about 16, closing in on 16.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pachylovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our Rebor grab-and-go Tyrannosaurus figures. And I think next to these guys, especially Mr. Papo Rex, who is a pretty large figure, you can get a pretty good idea overall of the fact that these grab-and-go Rexes are also quite large, and actually significantly larger, I would say. They have an overall very impressive appearance. And for another size comparison, here are the Rebor grab-and-go Tyrannosaurus figures next to a few other Rebor figures. You've got the Stegosaurus right there, as well as one of the Dilophosaurus. And again, giving you a pretty good idea of the fact that these Rebor grab-and-go Rex figures are definitely quite large. Overall, a really impressive size, if you ask me, for a great amount of money. The price on these is really cheap for a large Rex like this, so you're getting one heck of an incredible deal by purchasing either of these. So these Rebor grab-and-go Tyrannosaurus Rex figures are fantastic. I am extremely happy to now see a dinosaur introduced to the grab-and-go line because, again, previously we've only had one release. I know they have quite a few in the works. They have a Spinosaurus as well as a tortoise, and then, of course, 2 other variants of the Tyrannosaurus. So there's quite a bit coming from Rebor in the grab-and-go line, but up until this point, we've only had the Komodo dragon. But now seeing the Tyrannosaurs here, they are fantastic, and these have me really excited for potential future releases in the grab-and-go line. I almost wish that Rebor would stick with just the grab-and-go line because the figures as a whole look pretty much about the same quality that you get from the main Rebor line, aside from the teeth having that non-translucent look on these as opposed to the little bit more realistic appearance on the kind of higher quality figures from Rebor. But the actual sculpt and paint jobs other than that look honestly about as good as you get with the normal Rebor figures, potentially even better on these ones. So the fact that they are a lot cheaper of a price is really awesome if you ask me. And personally, I don't mind the fact that they're hollow and really light or anything like that, because that's kind of one of the things that makes these figures a bit cheaper. I actually quite like it because, again, allowing me to own a very large Rex like this at a cheaper price is a great thing if you ask me. I can always appreciate any chance at saving money because with as many dinosaur figures as I purchase to review here on the channel, any chance I can get to get something for a little bit of a cheaper price, I'm totally in. So Rebor creating grab-and-go figures, again, creating really nice, beautifully sculpted and beautifully painted Tyrannosaur figures in the cheaper price range is awesome. The sculpts of these are incredibly highly detailed, showing incredible amounts of fine detail throughout the figure. All the scale detail honestly looks fantastic on the figure, and they've done a great job of capturing all of the movement within the body with like skin stretching, skin wrinkling, skin folds. All that stuff is perfectly present on these figures, and I think the sculpts overall are nice and vibrant looking as far as the way that the detail kind of plays off of the figures, and are just in general fantastic. The paintwork as well is incredibly well done, and something that again really surprised me when I first opened the package up because I wasn't expecting them to look as good as they do. Paint-wise, these things are great, and again, dare I say, potentially better than previous Rebor figures, which shows that Rebor just continues to improve, and I think that they are really hitting a good stride now currently as far as the paintwork on their figures goes. So if you are interested in these figures, and trust me, if you are interested in a nice Rex, these are 2 great choices. I will include a link in the description to everythingdinosaur.com where you can purchase yours, as that's where I purchased mine. EverythingDinosaur.com is definitely one of the best websites that you're ever going to find to order dinosaurs from. I've actually had quite a few people messaging me asking me if Everything Dinosaur is a good reliable site to order from. I've ordered from them for years. They are a tremendous website to order from, and one of the few websites online that you're actually going to find where they genuinely care about how the customer feels. So make sure you head to the description, follow that link over to everythingdinosaur.com, and order yourself these beautiful grab-and-go Rebor Tyrannosaurus Rex figures, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe before you do, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.